We have Carly Roop from Penn Medicine. Carly is a registered dietitian and a certified specialist in oncology nutrition. We're going to sort of keep the vibe going here. So welcome to Carly Roop.
Hey everyone, that's a hard act to follow. So yeah, I am a registered dietitian. I've been working in oncology nutrition for my entire career. Won't tell you what that is. But I just wanted to get kind of a pulse. Who would identify themselves as a cancer survivor or cancer patient? Fantastic. That's amazing. How many people have worked with a registered dietitian in their cancer center? That's pretty good. Okay, yeah. So, and how many people are caregivers? Everyone else? Yeah. Good. All right, well then I'm very happy that you're all here because what I find is that not everyone has access to a dietitian when they're going through cancer treatment. I'm really happy I work at Penn. We can see people without charge and, kind of help people with symptom management. But since, if people don't have access to one, that's kind of what this presentation is about. Just kind of clarifying some of the cancer-related nutrition myths and giving some tips for symptom management. So my disclaimer is just that the content is not a substitute for treatment-specific recommendations, that, there's no really, you can't really go through an ideal cancer diet, and that it might not be exactly what, you're thinking is healthy, but what we really want to do is keep people nourished. And then consulting with your oncologist or your cancer center whenever you do have nutrition-related questions, or like our previous speaker, kind of any supplemental questions that you want to kind of start something. And then we're just going to talk about practical information for optimizing nutrition during cancer, some tips for managing some frequent nutrition impact symptoms. We're going to review some of those frequent questions that people might have, and discuss some diet recommendations for cancer prevention and prevention of recurrence. So this is moving ahead, good. So the lung cancer population, malnutrition in advanced lung cancer population is estimated to be 45 to 50% of people diagnosed, and it increases as the disease progresses. So what studies have found is that weight loss in this population is associated with fewer cycles of chemotherapy delivered, more treatment delays, and together that increases the incidence of anemia as well as toxicities. So it basically kind of interferes with how many cycles and how well people can do their cancer treatment, which ultimately is going to interfere with their prognosis or impact it. So my goals as an oncology dietitian is that we want to talk to people about maintaining lean muscle mass, strength, and energy, kind of give them the tools for that, maintaining adequate calories and protein, supporting the immune system, managing the nutrition impact symptoms, because as some of you know that have been through treatment, if they get kind of away from you, it's bad news bears, right? And then just kind of reducing stress around mealtime. Eating shouldn't be scary, okay? We shouldn't be scared that like putting a piece of something in our mouth is gonna make our cancer explode. That's just, it's too simple. That doesn't happen. So the impact of malnutrition. So when I'm saying malnutrition, I'm meaning someone that is not kind of adequately nourished. They've had maybe 10% body weight loss in 6 months. It's basically your immune system takes a hit. So that kind of cancer-related malnutrition increases your risk of infection. It kind of increases risk of post-operative complications, because I know with mesothelioma, There's usually, depending on your stage, a surgery. There's reduce in performance status, and then just decreased quality of life. If you don't feel strong and you're kind of getting pummeled by your treatment, you're not really kind of living. You're just kind of like dragging yourself through. And then, of course, we go to the internet, right? And the internet is not my best friend. But there's so much out there, and there's so much kind of fear-mongering on the internet. It can be really confusing as to like what is the right diet. And I did hear one audience member, say about the cookbook. That's the other thing. Everyone's so individual, and there are general diet guidelines for many different cancer types, but you're all individual people, and what fits in that guideline may not fit your situation. You might not have all those side effects, or you might not like to eat that type of food. You're like a study of one, so you deserve to kind of work with someone during your cancer treatment to help you navigate that. So this is a bit boring, and this is why I'm not an influencer. These are general healthy nutrition guidelines. This is very boring. No clickbait here. So this is really kind of what is going to sustain you during treatment. And it doesn't have to be insane. It's just eating the most healthy kind of nourishing diet that you can. But it's basically kind of fortifying your diet with fruits and vegetables, whole grains. But these vegetables, it's not a particular type of vegetable. I'm a fan of a potato. I think they're awesome. It has potassium. It does have fiber. It can be a complete meal. Like, you can put things on top of it. It's great. So it's any kind of vegetable. I love vegetables probably that are in season. I think it's always fun to eat seasonally. Love myself a squash. But then fruits. There's no right fruit. And there's no fruit that is going to be more antioxidants or better for you to eat during treatment. Just eat the fruit. That's the best thing you could do. Like, certainly, if you have diabetes, maybe bananas make your blood sugar go through the roof. So maybe that's not the right fruit for you, but for someone else, who cares? Eat the banana. It's not too much sugar. It's a banana. And then whole grains. I like people to experiment with whole grains, but it's what is feasible for you. Like, if you've never done more than rice, maybe these are just stepping stones. And we talk about maybe another easy grain, farro. I like farro, and you can saute it in 15 minutes. You don't have to rinse it or anything, like quinoa. Quinoa is a bit of an obstacle for me. It is. So then if it is an obstacle for you, like it is for me, I tell people, like, it's okay, maybe try the pouch, or maybe if you go to a restaurant, choose the item menu with quinoa, because it's still, even though you didn't prepare it, even though maybe it would be processed because it was already cooked, you're getting a different grain in your body, and your microbiome loves variety. Your microbiome are those probiotics that play with immunotherapy. They're kind of, so you're fortifying them. However you get it in, you're fortifying them. So I'm a fan of people just trying to experiment. And then we have protein. We do want protein in our diet, so it does make it onto the plate. But it's not, if we were thinking about the picnic plates, it's a little different makeup than it used to be, because it used to be the hot dog, and then you do like your potato salad and the corn on the cob. And now we've got, like salad or corn on the cob. And we've got a little thing for a slider, a mini slider. It's just smaller. Our proportions have shifted. So to kind of like break this down a little bit more, but it's lots of fruits and veggies in different ways. They can be frozen, they can be cooked, they can be roasted, they can be dried. It's just kind of like having them in your diet, making it work for you. Whole grains, like a woman yesterday, a lung cancer patient, not mesothelioma, but she said, oatmeal. I used to love it, I don't like it anymore. because nothing tastes like anything. So that mouthfeel is not good. And I was like, I get it. And I was like, I saw on the internet recently an oat loaf. And I was like, this is interesting. You take oatmeal, yogurt, an egg, baking soda, salt, you mix it, you put it in a pan. I hate measuring flour, so this was appealing to me. And I said, I tried it, and it came, and I sprinkled seeds on it, and it came out, and it's actually about, because I used Greek yogurt, it's 8 grams of protein, but it's kind of like having a serving of oatmeal in a slice. And you top it with it could be sweet, it could be savory. And she was like, oh, I like that. That would be good with honey. And I was like, yeah. So it's just thinking about different ways to kind of get in your grains. So I sent her the recipe. And, then had a slice at lunch. But we also want healthy fats. So I know that there is a lot on the internet about seed oils, but we don't have to be frightened of seed oils. They're actually really good for lowering saturated fat. I've spoken with cardiologists. They do evidence-based studies. And it's like, you could use avocado oil, but if you wanted to use canola oil because maybe cancer treatment's expensive, that's fine too. And if you're buying potato chips that are made with avocado oil and spending $3 more, I don't know why. It's still a potato chip. It's a potato chip. It's a snack food. And then there's omega-3 fatty acids: tuna, salmon, sardines, flax, walnuts for our folks that don't like tuna, salmon, sardines. There's also a ton more. The NIH will give a whole listing. Lean proteins. So one thing that I do try to kind of steer some of people away from are going to be some of the processed red meats. And in Philadelphia, that's not anyone's favorite thing to hear. But, it's when we're talking about an Italian hoagie, it's like that. But a cheesesteak, that's okay. You could kind of do a little bit of a cheesesteak, so I don't lose my audience totally. But we're kind of thinking about those things that kind of come in a log, look very different from their original form, so like pepperoni, sausage, deli meat. We just kind of want to try to reserve a hot dog to maybe once a year, not every week. And that, I tell people, I'm like, I'm not ruining your day. I'm ruining everyone in your family's day because they all should do this. And that's just because when people are asking me about recommendations for lowering cancer risk, this can lower your risk for colon cancer. So that's kind of why, I'm just saying, well, since you asked. So how do we know how many calories we actually need in our diet? This is kind of an estimate, is what I tell people. So I kind of like to give a bit of a wide range, but we usually break down, we do metrics, but we usually break down weight into kilograms. So you would do this kind of weight into kilograms is when you take your weight in pounds, you divide it by 2.2. Then we take this kind of evidence-based, based on studies, kind of calculation of 20 to 35 based on those kilograms, and then we give people a range. So we say, hey, try not to go anywhere near, my range is usually higher than that, but, try not to go anywhere lower than 1,800 calories. Maybe you need more than 23 or 2,400 calories, but you're somewhere in that range. If the person is counting calories at all, that's an important thing too. But it's if you're eyeballing things throughout the day, keep that in mind. Why we do this is kind of to help, if you're kind of overall getting enough calories, it will help to sustain your weight. Now, we want enough calories and we want to include all foods. We don't want to eliminate too many foods from our diet because carbs support those calories, fat supports those calories, and protein. Sometimes people come to me and they've been misguided and someone said, you gotta eat a high protein diet, and they say, I'm just gonna focus on protein. But I'm gonna discuss pretty soon, protein is important. We do want it. It does help rebuild cells, it protects our muscles, and it, helps with our immune system, but it's not calorie dense. So if someone were to just focus on protein, they're not gonna meet their calorie needs, and they're gonna be very full on very few calories. If we think about, I'll go back. If we think about something like, who is familiar with Premier protein drinks? Yeah, we've seen them, right? Pumpkin spice latte? Yeah. So a Premier protein shake is one of those shakes that you see people, lifting in the gym. They drink, or maybe your office mate. It's like this decade's Slim Fast. But it's 30 grams of protein, and it's 150 calories. Now, let's talk about protein needs. So when we look at our protein needs, we do that kilograms again. And we kind of do the kilograms, 2.2, and then there's a recommendation. Now this, again, based on like the kind of current opinion, I like the American College of Sports Medicine. I liked this graph, but I would say the range could be anywhere from that 0.8, which is just basically meeting your needs, to as high as 2 grams of protein per kilogram. Because 2 grams of protein per kilogram would be great for kind of helping with muscle maintenance and kind of building muscle. So when you do this, we give people range. 1.3 is kind of where usually we'll kind of like fall, because you're kind of in the middle there of that 2.0 and that, I would say 1.3 to 1.6, depending if someone's healing, they're gonna have higher needs too. They'll be like a 2.0. But so you tell someone, 54 to 82 grams. Now I wanna go back to that Premier protein. Remember I said I had 30 grams of protein in it? So if someone was just focusing on their protein, they'd be halfway to their minimum needs just by drinking that Premier protein, because I had 30 grams of protein, and this says that that person needs about 54 at least. And that means that they pretty much say they decide, I'll drink 2, get my protein needs done, I'm good, done for the day. No one can sustain themselves on 300 calories. Like, you need more calories than that. And that's why I really try to kind of get people to not really focus too much on just meeting their protein needs. Because if you do that, you're gonna lose sight of all the other calories that your body needs. And then these are just kind of some protein sources, because that's the other thing. We can find protein in a lot of things. And if you go to the grocery store, you can find protein in even more things than you ever thought. There's protein Pop-Tarts. I bought one. It was on clearance. It was good. It's a shameful thing. I'm not proud. But they make protein Pop-Tarts. They make protein chips. It's like everything has protein in it. Maybe it's not the best form of protein. There's Premier protein cereal now. But you can get your protein. We can get creative with meeting your protein needs. My oat loaf, 8 grams of protein in a slice. Then you top it with cottage cheese. That's just a me thing, but. So these are tips for including our protein. You can do your oat loaf. You can add your cottage cheese. You can do egg with avocado on toast. You can use Dave's Killer Bread and get like 4 grams of protein. You can add protein to your salad. Like, we don't need to have a wimpy garden salad. We can have a salad with chicken. We can have a salad with beans. We can throw farro or quinoa in it. And then we can take our protein on the go. There's protein bars, there's protein shakes. But then, we could make things. We could do like a little tuna salad. Well, that doesn't make you like popular, but we could do nuts and seeds. We could make our own protein bars at home. You could pack a yogurt. And then, cheese sticks, they have protein. That's travel friendly. And then, beans, peas, lentils, like anyone like curry. Curry is a nice way to kind of get in some protein. And then you can also like soups. I always find soups are a good way to sneak in some stuff. So you can blend in cottage cheese to like a tomato soup. And it kind of makes it a bit pizza-y. That's a stretch, but it does. You can blend in silken tofu to maybe a miso mushroom soup. And people are none the wiser. Ask my aunt. She has no idea. Then we also want to talk about hydration. I know if you've been in treatment, the nurses are like, you gotta drink 2 to 3 liters of water. We just want you, we say that because we want you to kind of get the chemo out of your system. And also, people don't usually drink that much when they feel nauseous. So we want to maybe just kind of consider that everyone kind of needs that 8 to 10 glasses a day. This here is about 3. But it doesn't need to just be water. You can drink juice that you dilute. You can, because I'm not like a huge juice fan for adults, but drink a little juice, dilute it with water. You can have some electrolyte drinks. It could be some non-caffeinated sodas if you're really kind of feeling, like water sometimes sits heavy on people. So it's a big obstacle when people are like, you gotta drink water. You can flavor the water. You don't have to drink just water. Like you can add lemon. It's still gonna hydrate you. As long as you're not drinking alcohol, it'll hydrate you. So now talking about nutrition impact symptoms. And so these are kind of like across the board, usually the biggies that I see. Fatigue, loss of appetite. With immunotherapy, which I know is kind of included now as like first line, sometimes some of these side effects can get really out of hand because you can kind of get the itises. So gastritis or colitis. If you are having, increased diarrhea and Imodium's not touching it, neither is a banana. So that's when you call the doctor. So for poor appetite, no one feels like eating. Chemo makes us not feel hungry, and we can't rely on hunger cues during cancer treatment because your body it's busy. And so appetite goes out the window. It's trying to fight cancer and trying to repair. So you don't feel hungry, but other organs in your body do need calories. And that's what I tell people. Your brain needs calories, your kidneys, your lungs. So you have to sometimes make a bit of a schedule for yourself. People tell me like that eating every 2 hours, it doesn't have to be completely separate meals, but think about little kids. They kind of nibble throughout the day. You pack things so that, as soon as they kind of look like they're getting hungry or acting weird, you just give them food. That's what you need to do for yourself during treatment. Trying different things that maybe you thought you didn't like or, kind of like a lot of people really like Asian food when they're going through treatment. Like if we talk, it's like stir fry or maybe like it's the ginger, it's the soy sauce, it's the plum sauce, it's interesting. So it's just kind of thinking a little bit out of the box. And when people don't have a good appetite, that's very hard to do, which is why I'm here, because we talk about food when they don't really feel like thinking about it. Soft or liquids, like soft foods or liquid foods. Sometimes liquid calories, like if you ever think about like diet advice that people give, don't drink your calories. Well, maybe we should drink our calories if we don't feel like eating. So then it's kind of like drinking a smoothie. And we can fortify a smoothie. You can put, in my husband's smoothie, there's frozen fruit. Now we started putting some Japanese sweet potatoes that are cooked. He put some oats in, there's some dates. I tried for a while to put collagen in it, but he finally was like, you can stop putting that white powder in. So, taste changes. Taste changes are really challenging. And we don't really have good advice for it, except for you have to try a lot of things, which is not really fun. But I do have at the end of this a resource too, that are people that have been there and kind of talked through taste changes. But so these are just kind of some tips and stuff, like if things taste too salty, too sweet, trying to kind of add some fat to it to kind of help mellow out that taste. So using like a heavy cream, maybe putting in like avocado, putting in a little more like olive oil, it can kind of help with diluting that a bit. If something is a little bitter, you can add sweetener. I've actually seen it recommended to put like vanilla extract in spaghetti sauce. Oh, yeah, right? Too bland, add heat. Add soy sauce, add Asian spices, add curries, add capers or pickles, zest, because if you can smell things, that'll really help. Sometimes people can tolerate a little heat, or I say like add texture too, because texture is going to increase interest, and it's not going to feel so like blah in your mouth. Or open face things, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Sparkling water might help, kind of just clearing out the mouth. Baking soda and salt water rinses. If you do that metallic taste, sometimes replacing the silverware. And then mouth sores. So soreness in the mouth, that's really hard too. That sucks. Baking soda and salt water rinses, and then it's kind of like, well, if it hurts, don't eat that particular thing. So, but then for some people, they're like, I want to avoid things. And like, what can I eat to avoid the nausea? I don't think there's anything that we can do to kind of prevent things from happening. It's just kind of modifying our diets when it does happen. So you don't have to go to a soft diet because you might get mouth sores. If you get mouth sores, then you move to your soft diet. Like, I don't want to ruin your mealtime all the way through your treatment. Trying different temperatures. Some people are better with hot, some people are better with cold, some people need room temperature. Adding more moisture, so if something does look a bit too crunchy or whatnot, add dips to it because that's gonna soften it. Blend things up. If a soup or something seems too chunky, make it an emulsified soup. That's why I think those little like hand mixers are super helpful because they're easy to kind of clean up. And then liquid calories. Shakes, use a straw, just get it down. Nausea, again, antiemetics are amazing. They're very helpful. I'm sure, there's ginger too, but we created them for a reason. They can help us, and if we can eat regular and we can drink during our treatment because we're not nauseous, it's really important for us to be doing that because that's gonna keep our weight stable and that's gonna help our immune system. So, trying things like light foods, small frequent meals, so you're keeping something on your stomach, open windows, run fans, or do room temperature stuff. Fatigue sucks. I didn't talk enough about exercise in this slide deck, and I apologize. But exercise is so important that it's actually, recommended that people during treatment should do exercise up to that 150 minutes a week, like everyone else, in the fashion that you can do it. Maybe it's not going to be every week, but it's kind of 5 minutes one day. Also, weights are important for people to pick up. It could be a soup can, but it doesn't have to be any particular weights. But doing weight resistance training and doing a little physical activity actually is going to help with mitigating that fatigue. Also taking short naps, and there are resources like Livestrong that can help with people that are going through cancer treatment to kind of do exercise safely. That's usually at the YMCA. Also, the American College of Sports Medicine has a designated page on their website where you can use your zip code or state and look up exercise programs for people going through cancer treatment. Having kind of, diet that has carbs and protein, like carbs with a little fiber, and protein, which it could be like apple and peanut butter, which is a little lower in protein, but still. These kind of help with stabilizing blood sugars, and that can help you kind of keep your energy up throughout the day. And then if you are having trouble preparing meals, consider some meal programs. There's a few that kind of go through insurance, Meals on Wheels if you're homebound, but since you're all here, I imagine that's not for you. In Pennsylvania, there's Meals America, which is kind of anyone 65 and older, but even younger than that too. And then diarrhea. So diarrhea, if you're not having kind of the itis from immunotherapy, choosing foods that aren't going to kind of aggravate the situation. It's the brat diet. I also would say Imodium. Imodium is helpful in this, circumstance, or Lamodal. But bananas, oatmeal, applesauce, tapioca, that kind of stuff. You don't have to exclusively eat these things, but having potatoes, what you want to do is kind of think of anything that's going to kind of expand. That's going to help slow down how quickly things are going through our transit, through our intestines. It's also going to help with absorbing water. So like think about in your sink when you have some leftover rice or something, and as it sits in the sink and gets wet, it expands. That's good in your tummy. That'll help. There are things like banana trawl, which are banana flakes. They can be helpful. They are sold, online, and you can kind of add them to applesauce or yogurt, and they help with kind of fortifying the microbiome, and they help with bulking stool. And you want to have foods that have sodium, potassium, magnesium. So that's because if you're having a lot of diarrhea, you're going to lose electrolytes. So sodium can be found in simple things: soup, saltines, pickles. Potassium, bananas, avocados, potatoes, melon, and magnesium coming from oatmeal, electrolyte drinks, almond, peanut butter, also cocoa too. Yeah. And then avoiding kind of any aggravating foods. So sugar-free items could have like alcohol sugars. They can sometimes cause diarrhea. And then like gassy foods. Maybe a little broccoli is going to be all right, but don't eat like a whole bowl of broccoli. Unless you have constipation, then try a whole bowl of broccoli. Whatever floats. The GI tract is an interesting place, and everyone's is very individual. So what might move yours might not move mine. But I do find fluids are really, really helpful. If you think about it, if there's no kind of fluid coming in, how's the log gonna move, right? If we think about those flume rides. So there's that. But then having some fiber sources, and it's kind of like, well, what kind of fiber? So you kind of want a little bit of both. You want that soluble, you want that expanding fiber, and you want that fiber that kind of tickles the intestines and helps shoot things through. So we kind of want it all. We want a little berries, but we also want some pears, and we want some nuts, and we want some seeds. So it's just kind of having like a diet that actually has some fiber sources in it. If you are kind of feeling really uncomfortable with your stomach and, chewing gum or carbonated things, they're going to add more kind of air to the situation. That's going to make you feel crampy, gassy. So we just kind of tell people, like, watch those things that might be overly, like, farty. Call it what it is. And then, try to kind of establish a routine. Actually, things like prunes or kiwis can be helpful. If you're not allergic to kiwis, and like warm prune juice or hot water with lemon. But sometimes you need a little help because maybe you're on narcotics or maybe the antiemetics have really stopped you up. And there's no shame in that. Like it's, no one gets a prize at the end for using the least amount of drugs. That's just, I've been in this for a while, like 15 years. No one got a prize. And then just some, kind of FAQs. So I'm not sure what was said about sugar. I missed that bit. But it is, recent studies suggest that a diet high in simple sugar, such as refined sugar, sodas, and sweeteners, can increase your cancer risk of developing certain types of cancers, right? That doesn't mean that we can simply say sugar feeds cancer. That's too simple. What it's saying is that it can contribute to kind of not some great things happening in our body. It can contribute to high blood sugars or diabetes, excess weight. Now, these two things are insulin resistance. These things are going to have kind of consequences, like they can increase cancer risk. Also, sugar foods, so our sweets and sodas, if we have a diet that's high in all of that, it means that we're not having a diet that has other things. Like I remember talking to my mom about, after a conference I went to, and this great dietitian who's a 3-time cancer survivor spoke, and she thought she had created smoothies, but she just lived in the middle of the country. And yeah, it was kind of her thing. She thought it was just her, but she missed that California happened. And she was kind of aiming for that 7 to 11 servings of fruits and veggies every day. And that was really what helped fortify her immune system as she went through her 3rd cancer treatment. Because she had cancer as a child, and the radiation made her susceptible for breast cancer, and then the breast cancer came back. And, all the way through, she had never really connected that what I'm putting in my body might help fortify me. And so when I told my mom this, she aimed for that. So it means, she's like, how do you do that? And I was like, well, you eat fruits and veggies at every meal. And she's like, but then how do you have room for chips? And that's the thing. It's like, well, yeah, I guess if you're eating chips, you're not making room for carrot sticks. And that's what we get from fruits and veggies. It's not only that fiber, but we get antioxidants. They're also low in calories, but fill us up on vitamins, minerals, and these antioxidants, or we call phytonutrients, plant nutrients. So they play this tremendous role in our body that might protect us from getting cancer. So it's not so simple when people say, well, I shouldn't eat sugar, it feeds the cancer. I'm like, no, that's like saying you ate a pickle and it fed the baby. No, it's just not gonna give your body anything very good. But if you have a piece of cake because it's your birthday, that's okay. It can fit if you're eating a well-balanced diet. Your body can handle that because it's getting a lot of really good nutrients otherwise. The other thing is about vitamins and minerals, because there is, even just, now that menopause, people care about it. It's, there's every single supplement under the sun is now geared towards menopause. Well, it was like that with cancer. And, it is kind of, they all sound good. They sound good. They sound like they're going to work. But supplements are not regulated, and sometimes taking something is not really going to help, or it could interact with our treatment. So what we do is if people are getting radiation, it's not really recommended. And sometimes with certain chemotherapies, like carboplatin, I would say is one. Having a vitamin or mineral supplement, not in your diet, not what you're eating, but something that is a pill that says vitamin C, is not, maybe gonna play well with the chemo. And so we don't recommend that people take these supplemental antioxidants. We tell people eat a kiwi. That's all the vitamin C you need in a day. I think that is, maybe 2 kiwis. But I think if you have 5 prunes, you get all the potassium you need. But then herbal supplements too, they should really kind of be not avoided, but we really do want people to talk to their physicians. They may not say no, And some people are lucky enough to have pharmacists that know a lot about this and can look for interactions. They might just say, not on the days of treatment. So it's not always like a no, it's maybe not this day and this day. And then people could take a standard multivitamin. We just kind of encourage them to look for the ones that are just like a 100% or pretty close to that. Sometimes a lot of them have like extraordinary, amounts of B12 in them, supporting I don't know what. And then food sources. We're always food first, especially when you're on immunotherapy. Some people are like, oh yeah, cool, I'll take some probiotics. But probiotics actually aren't going to fortify or help the immune therapy work anymore. Eating foods with probiotics are okay, but actually taking a capsule that is full of probiotics may not actually do any good. So it's just important, like food first, try that. And then talk with people. And then if you do talk with people and they say, go forth, do that, get it third-party tested. There's a lot of wild stuff out there, and just making sure that it's been tested is super important because you want to pay, get what you're paying for. And then these are just kind of cancer fighting guidelines, which is just eating a diet that's full of veggies, healthy fats, fruits, beans, whole grains, lean meats, so reducing our intake of red meat, but it doesn't mean we have to stop eating red meat, just reduce, if people are eating it every day, maybe try to eat it 3 times a week. And then really the number is 18 ounces a week. Try to keep it under that. Processed meats, we all really want to try to cut down on. So that's our bologna and our hot dogs. We want to try to limit added sugar and sugar-sweetened beverages. So yeah, you might need a ginger ale during treatment, and that's okay. But like drinking a Pepsi every single day after work, or during, at 3 o'clock, maybe try to cut down on that. That's a lot of sugar. And it's just simple. It's just kind of like going to make your body crash. Avoid supplements for cancer prevention. Reduce alcohol intake. I don't know if anyone drinks in here, but I'm here to ruin your time. Good time. Try to reduce alcohol intake. It doesn't actually do anything good for us. It actually is a toxin. And so trying to kind of keep it to that 1 per day for women, 2 per day for men, and that's like not a generous pour. That's 5 ounces of wine. Have an exercise routine, maintain healthy body weight. And then these are some of the resources. So did I put it on here? Cooking for Chemo. So this is a chef, and he's great. If you're kind of really struggling with that taste thing, he really delves into taste and recommendations. And then tasting notes is very interesting. There was a chef at a really famous restaurant, Adelina, I think it's called, Alinea. And he was on Chef's Table, Chef's Table on Netflix. But he had tongue cancer, and he continued to cook, continued to be a chef. It's a really amazing story. But he has this beautiful series with a dietitian where they talk about him going through cancer treatment while they cook food and like talk through what they're cooking. It's so beautiful, so I put the website there. And he's just amazing. And then if you don't have a dietitian but would like to speak with one, the LLC.org, it's Lymphoma Leukemia Society. Even though you have mesothelioma, they don't care. You can get a 30-minute consult with a dietitian for free. Any cancer, they can kind of help you with some of your questions. We also have OncoLink, which we put in a lot of resources into at Penn, and we update it every 2 years, and it's great for evidence-based information. All right, guys, thank you for your time. Yeah, if you have time, if people... I don't want to interrupt lunch.
You mentioned sugar, no Pepsi, all that. What do you think of Diet Pepsi, Coke Zero, the things that have the sugar substitutes? How do they rank?
So again, it's just a moderation thing. I think if we're doing it a moderate amount, I know that there is research out there, but nutrition research is actually really hard. And the headlines often capture the most like ridiculous part of the research, and it's not always the full picture. So I think it's just a matter of trying to keep these things to a moderate level. Maybe we don't drink 6 cans in a day. Maybe it's trying to do 6 cans in a week, and then take it down from there. I think having it once in a while is, a good move to do. If it's Diet Coke, it's different, though, I feel differently. But yeah, what else? Anyone else have a question?
Yep.
Yeah.
On one of your first slides, it mentioned to limit dairy, milk, things like that. And then there was a lot of references through to use dairy. What is the position on dairy?
The position on dairy is that, so what it could have been, if you're having diarrhea, that's the time that maybe if you're finding dairy is contributing to it, that you would limit dairy. But really, we say probably like across the board, like a low-fat dairy intake, especially if it's coming from like cultured foods. So think yogurt or maybe like cottage cheese or some other cheeses. Then it's perfectly good source of calcium and protein in your diet. But low fat would probably be like a good recommendation. If you need more calories than like whole milk, but that's only like 30 calories more. Yeah, so usually it's like a particular reason why we would say like limit it to this. Yeah.
Mentioned about nutrition research being hard and reporting on nutrition research being pretty awful in general. So I'm wondering, when you look at stories coming out, how do you approach them, and what might be some things that people in this room could learn from that?
Yes, thank you. There's actually a really good, I don't know if anyone's on Instagram, but Kevin Klatt is Klatt. He's a registered dietitian that does research. I think he used to do research for the NIH, and he talks a lot about that. I think if you have a kind of study where there isn't kind of, they're comparing something and making a claim, but they're not comparing it to anything, or if you kind of get into the methods used and maybe they fed one population of people avocados, and to supplement for those calories, they gave them like a muffin. That's apples to oranges, not apples to apples. So it's not a fair comparison. So usually it's kind of like, the other thing that I look at too is, and we get this too because people come with us with these research and they're like, what do you think about this? And we're like, and it's usually like that's usually my first reaction. It's just like, what? And so it is, usually the study will kind of say something like, X something feeds cancer, right? It's going to feed cancer. And I'm like, oh, great. When you look at those studies, a lot of times what this is doing is it's looking at a petri dish. It's looking at cells and looking at pathways and looking at particular amino acids and saying it feeds a pathway. And then at the bottom of it says, this could be used in future research. And so we can't, or it's used in rats, and rats don't always translate to humans. And so when you're kind of seeing these and it's a big headline, take a deep breath. That's what I do. And then try to read through, try to go to the link that'll give you the study and read through. What are we doing it on? Was it rats? Was it cells? Is it an extraordinary amount of something that we have given a teeny tiny poor rat? And now we see catastrophic events? And then the other thing is like, it doesn't always mean that the whole food that we're eating, they've taken out one part of that food, one amino acid in that whole protein compound, and looked at it as a pathway. It doesn't always mean that, if we were to eat a berry that had that one protein source, the berry is actually going to feed a pathway. It's when we're just looking, and what they're gonna do is more research for drugs that will stop that pathway. That's kind of, so it's usually, what are we doing it on? Did we do it on people? How many people? What are we comparing it to? What did we feed the control group? And, what's the conclusion here? Because what they're doing, and I've been caught in this too, like being quoted, clickbait. They really are, they're making a catchy headline. I mean, I did an article, and she didn't tell me how she was gonna set it up, and I didn't really wanna do it, but I thought, I'm a registered dietitian, I work in oncology, I should do this. And so she was trying to find foods that you should avoid or supplements during treatment. So I was like, well, this is really hard because it really depends on what you're getting treated with. And I gave her an example. I said, but if you were getting oxaliplatin, which none of you would get if you had mesothelioma, but you would if you had colon cancer, it makes you really sensitive to cold things. And so you would want to avoid cold things because it doesn't feel nice when you eat them. It's not harmful, it just doesn't feel good. And so when I saw the article, number 11, and it's 13 foods to avoid and supplements. Number 11, ice cream. And I'm like, what? And then it says, people getting oxaliplatin. Who's going to read the people getting oxaliplatin? No one. They're going to see ice cream. I didn't say that. I like ice cream. Yeah, so that's the other thing, too, is always just kind of take that stuff with a grain of salt, because it needs further investigation. All right. No. You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.